Good afternoon, Tweeples. I would like to give a brief introduction for our esteemed speaker, Professor Arvind Chaturvedi. Mr. Chaturvedi is a professor at International Management Institute, New Delhi. He has master's degrees in economics and in statistics from IIT Kanpur. He has a PhD from IIT Delhi. He has been in academics, research, consultancy for more than 35 years now. For several years, he has worked as an independent consultant in marketing and advertising research. He has conducted studies for national and international organizations, including WHO, ILO, and UNICEF. He has also authored a research book, Consumption Expenditure Inequalities in Rural India. He has more than a dozen research papers to his credit now. Also extensively written on business, economy, and consumer issues. Contributed more than 500 articles in newspapers and magazines. Further, an acknowledged Hindi poet with 2 published collections to his credit. He has also worked for several committees for Government of India. Has been a member of National Literacy Mission Authority under Government of India and National Youth Council. Further, I would like to invite Dr. Arvind Chaturvedi and share his immense knowledge with us. Thank you, sir.
Our PT Mr. Gunjan Mathur will present a bouquet to Arvind Chaturvedi. Mr. Rajendra Tevar will present, on behalf of Tevar Samaj, will present a shawl to Arvind Chaturvedi.
Dr. Swami, Professor Vaidyanathan, M.R. Venkatesh, Mr. Jagdish Shetty, and friends of the Twitter. In the morning when Professor Vaidyanathan was speaking, he said change is in the air. Change is coming. Yes, I'll talk about that change later. But first let me talk about another type of change. Change which has already taken place. Change which is not for good. Change which is for worse. We have to be aware of this change, and to back up my argument, I have a lot of statistics. Being a professor, I'm used to a 90-minute session. And I've prepared my PowerPoint according to that. But when I was told I have to cut down and I have only 15 minutes, I'll be skipping some of the slides. But yes, those slides are also useful, and I'll be commenting on them at the same time. The change which I am talking about is changes in the profile of the parliamentarians, our MPs in Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, their political affiliation. Over a period of time, we are talking about the parliament since 1950. The changes in the socio-economic profile of the members of parliament, in terms of demographics, in terms of representation, what we call inclusiveness, in terms of social structure, and the changes in the behavioral pattern of the members of parliament, the way they behave in parliament. The change itself is not enough, but also we have to evaluate these MPs from the yardstick of performance. So whether the changes which are taking place and whether the changes in performance which are taking place are for the good or for the worse, you have to decide. As I said, I will be skipping some of these parts. The changes we are talking about, first is political affiliation. You know, when our parliament started, we have very few political parties. And over the period, the composition of political parties has changed. The social structure has led to formation of several parties. Maybe in the beginning there was no party for farmers, there is no party for laborers, there is no party for poor. Later on, in the name of castes and in the name of particular sections, political parties have been formed. In the last election to the Lok Sabha, some 350 political parties participated. And out of these 300 odd parties, about 260 parties did not win any seat. That means the entire parliament is composed of, even if we count the single member party, a double member party, roughly around 30 political party, which is much more than what we started with in 1952. What about composition? When I say demographic profile, are we having younger MPs or older MPs? In fact, this has been a change over a period of time. In the first Lok Sabha, we had members of parliament who were actually participating in the freedom struggle. And most of them, if you look at the education profile also, which I'll cover, they were older people. But as the time went, the average age of the parliamentarians came down. But as we see reverse in the last Lok Sabha, which is about 54 years, that means average parliamentarian is about 54 years, and by the time he completes, this is the time of election, and by the time they complete their term, they are roughly around 60 years. If we look at 1952 data, only 20% MPs were 56 years or older. But in 2009, this figure has gone to 43%. That means on an average, our MP is now much more older than he was earlier. The only thing we can say, that in the first Lok Sabha, there were a number of MPs who were more than 70 years of age, and there were also some MPs who were more than 80 years. Yes, this number is 81 to 85, that bracket, that has gradually been reduced, and we have MPs up to 70 years, 75 years. But the good silver lining is that number of women MPs is increasing over a period of time. If we look at the number, it was 47 only in the 15th Lok Sabha, and the average age of women MPs is much less than the average age of the male MPs. The female MPs are at the average of 47 years. That means there is a difference of about 8 years, which is a good sign. This is the graph. In fact, let me also acknowledge the source of the data. I have taken the data from many people who have written books on parliament, including the two speakers, Mr. GMC Balyogi and Mr. P.S. Sangma. There are a number of other authorities who have written books on the profile of the parliamentarians. But also Parliament has also published, when the Parliament completed 50 years, they published a book, especially on the profile of parliamentarians. And again, when Parliament completed 60 years, last year they compiled a book of the statistics. And this has been borrowed from there. As you look at the data, we can very clearly see the profile of younger people at the last bottom, the black mark that you see is less, and the highest bracket, which is 51 and all 51 to 55, that has been increasing over a period of time. What about education? Yes, this is again a bright spot. People in the freedom struggle were there. They were mostly lawyers, but again those who were not lawyers, either there was an extreme kind of situation in the first two parliaments. An extreme kind of situation was that either people were highly illiterate or highly educated, or people illiterate. This is being changing over a period of time. As we see now, the percentage of people who are graduates has really gone up. So we can say that those people who are illiterate, those people who are barely educated, this number has gone down, and the postgraduates have gone up from 18% to 29% over a period of time. If we look at the women MPs, the Madhya Pradesh steals the show. Madhya Pradesh has highest percentage of women parliamentarians, 21%, followed by Uttar Pradesh 15% and Gujarat 15%. And these figures you have to think in terms of the women reservation bill. All political parties, irrespective of the ideology, have been advocating the women's reservation bill in the parliament, and they're demanding 50%. Some people are advocating 35%, but none of the parties have touched the figures which is prevailing in the parliament, and or the percentage which they have been demanding. And if you look at the parliaments of other countries, other democratic countries, Sweden has 45% women, Argentina has 37% women, UK has 22% women, and USA has 17% women. So maybe we can say we are competing with USA and UK, but not about Sweden. So percentage of women MPs in parliament, this graph actually shows to you that the bar height has been increasing consistently over a period of time. If we look at the trend, of course there have been ups and downs, but the trend is positive, and it shows that most of the percentage and the number in absolute terms is also been increasing. Occupation of MPs, I'll spend little time on this. As I said earlier, the percentage of lawyers was highest in the first and second Lok Sabha. And even in the freedom struggle, if we look at our freedom struggle, we had most of the people who are doctors or lawyers or engineers, well qualified people. But over a period of time, the percentage of lawyers therefore has been going down. And the worst was about 10% in the 12th Lok Sabha, and highest was 37% in the first Lok Sabha. Now, I was talking about the criminalization of politics, and when I talk about the criminalization of politics, as you can see, what percentage of cases are there, against the members of parliament. Can we go back, Ashish? Yeah, this one. Yeah, if you look at the last Lok Sabha, not the current Lok Sabha, the last Lok Sabha, MPs, the criminal charges was very high, and the first one shows, according to the political parties, 29 MPs from BJP, highest number, had the criminal cases against them. Congress had 24, and not to suggest the smaller parties, which are Samajwadi Party and the RJD on the right hand corner, respectively with 11 and 8. In fact, the parliament has done a study along with another NGO called Association for Democratic Reforms, ADR, and ADR has done a study of ministers. And they found out of the 66 ministers of the Manmohan Singh cabinet, 9 ministers have criminal charges against them. Ministers, not MPs, but ministers. And this is naturally you can say the change for the worse. In first and second and third parliament, there was nobody with a criminal record. And after that, the criminalization of politics started, and you know whom to blame for this. But over a period of time, since the third Lok Sabha, gradually the criminalization of the parties, irrespective of the parties, has been increasing. And you have in the last Lok Sabha election, 61 candidates from BJP who had criminal record contested, and against which 29 won. And this is the second graph which I am suggesting. This shows the participation of criminals in our politics. Then we say the 120 MPs overall, 22% of the parliament is facing cases, criminal cases. And some of them are heinous crimes like murder, attempt to murder, robbery, dacoity, kidnapping, theft and extortion, rape and other violent crimes. These are the MPs. That means 22% of our parliament is facing charges such as this. How do you expect them? When Venkatesh was suggesting about what happened yesterday, day for yesterday in Delhi, it is the criminalization of politics which has led to the criminalization of police and the police and the criminal nexus, which is leading us to a situation such as this. If we look at the last Lok Sabha and the current Lok Sabha, in the last Lok Sabha only 128 candidates were there with a criminal record, and now we have 162. So again, we are actually competing with the previous data, and that means in the next parliament to come, the number of criminals is only going to increase, whether we are talking about the number of contesting candidates or number of elected MPs. Yes, the income profile also has been changing. What income profile has been changing? In the last Lok Sabha, in the last election, which is the current Lok Sabha, there are 58 MPs who are crorpatis. And if you look at the assets of these different people, the assets have even multiplied. I was looking at the latest figures for the election to the Karnataka Assembly, because if we talk about Lok Sabha, we cannot be far away from the Assembly elections also. In Karnataka Assembly election, there are people whose assets from the last election to this election has increased 700 times. Now this is, where from they are making this money? They are declaring this money on record. But how the money is growing, how the money they are multiplying, and the sources of nobody questioned, because in according to the rules, they only have to declare that how much money they had, what is the asset they have, but not from where they've got. So the source of money, that is to be questioned, and that is for the people to decide where they have amassed so much wealth. You remember the case of Bahan Mayawati ji, who said that several hundred crores which she has actually got within a span of 2-3 years has been gifted to her by the workers, and this is what she presented in the court. And recently the case has come where her brother, 1200 crores, Anand Kumar Mayawati's brother, he has got assets worth 1200 crores without any company, and all the companies' addresses which were there, the companies were found to be fake, and even the fake companies, the assets are 1200 crores, and he's showing this income is from the companies which he has got. So you can again see the repetition of the same thing, whether we talk about the central government or we talk about the state government. Now, education level, if you look at this, I've already said the upper crust, which we have this about post-graduation and PhDs, that has been increasing over a period of time, and we have got the graduates, post-graduates increased from 18% to 29%. Is it going back? In fact, this income, there is very funny thing, they don't declare the source of the income, from where they've got the income, but people say that MPs also make money. How do they make money? There is one thing which we have said about the performance. You will be surprised. The number of questions average MPs asking has gone up. And you remember there was a case when 12 MPs were caught from different political parties asking money for the questions. And maybe this is the reason why the number of questions which they are raising, both unstarred and starred, the number of questions has gone up. Only indicator of performance which has been improved is number of questions. Now, from where they are getting these questions, one can very simply imagine. That means they are getting this money from the vested interest for asking questions, and that is the only performance indicator which has gone. In fact, the funny thing is they say the under the table. They are increasing their income under the table, and this phrase under the table is also a very funny phrase, because in English they say under the table, but in Hindi they say upar ki kamai. So I don't know why English this is under and Hindi this is upar. That is again a very interesting phenomenon. The living style, lifestyle of the MPs has changed significantly, and they say there is a couplet I will recite कि काजू भुने हैं प्लेट में, विस्की गिलास में, काजू भुने हैं प्लेट में, विस्की गिलास में, उतरा है रामराज विधायक निवास में. This is the kind of Ramraj we are getting. If we talk about the 15th Lok Sabha, as you can see here, the 1158 candidates who contested the last election, I am talking first gradual and then the last election, 15% candidates had criminal cases, of which Congress had 26% candidates with criminal record, BJP had 27%, BSP had 21%, name any party, Samajwadi Party with 28%, NCP even one step ahead with 29%, whether we talk about local parties, Anna DMK, 9 out of 21, 42.8, that is only 43% candidates had criminal record. And this is what you have for the quality of your MPs. Only 3% were without any assets. In fact, when they submit the declaration form, they say, what is your asset? 3%, 97% are given their assets, which is more than a crore. But 3 people said they have no assets. 3% say they are without any asset. Surprisingly, 62% did not even have a PAN card. Let me skip some of this data. I've already said about the lawyers. The percentage of lawyers has gone down over a period of time. But of course, education-wise, there has been an improvement. We must admit that. And the consultants, the chartered accountants, the doctors and the judges, retired judges, they are also joining politics, which is a good sign. Which is a good sign. But then if you look at the performance in the criminalization, that gives a bad. Now, first time members which are elected roughly 40%. And this, the credit goes to the people of this country. That means 40% people who are elected in every parliament on an average, they are new faces. But these are new faces does not mean they are new to politics. In fact, that is the change you have to bring. These are the people who have been brought for the parliament for the first time. They may have been minister earlier in the state. They may have been maybe MLA in the state. For the parliament, they are first time. But this is what the record says. If we look at the performance, MPs are working less. I have already said the number of meetings are less, number of the attendance is less. There are more disruptions in the adjournments in the house. Walkouts are more. Attendance is less, and question asked has gone up. I already said why. And this Urdu couplet, I think, very aptly suits Parliament. कि गलत बाजार की जानिब चले आए हैं हम शायद. गलत बाजार की जानिब चले आए हैं हम शायद. चलो संसद में चलते हैं, वहां भी सेल होती है. Yes, in fact, I know for this, if I say this, maybe, but this is a published share of a Urdu shair, so maybe if I am liable for privilege, then first the publisher also has to be taken to privilege. Now, when I say the working has gone down, what do I mean? Lok Sabha had on an average 127 days sitting in 1952. And over a period of time, the average sitting per year has gone down to 73 days. Whereas the government committees, the committees of the members, ministers, parliamentary affairs, leaders of different parties, chief whips of different parties, time and again have got a criteria, and that criteria, they say 110 days every year we should meet. That means we are underperforming to the extent of 70%. The average working per year of the parliament, and now that to 73 days is not 73 days working, it is only 73 days meeting. I'll show you in another chart, out of those days where parliament meets, how many days they actually work. This graph, as you can see very clearly, see right from 1952, both for Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, the red is for Rajya Sabha, green is for Lok Sabha, both of them, the average number of days they work in a year is going down. Now this is for the current Lok Sabha, the 15th Lok Sabha, for 12 different sessions that we have had so far. The number of days for each session, as you can see, of course, varies from the length of the session, but the sitting hours also has been changing. The sitting hours is actually the transacted business, how much business they have transacted, and the time lost due to disruption and forced adjournments. If you look at this, in the sixth session of the current Lok Sabha, 124 hours were lost. That means this is the number of hours lost for every session of the current Lok Sabha we are talking about. And if you look at this, where I have given the figure of the total number of hours for which the parliament met, and for total number of hours the disruptions were there. As you can see, this is as high as 90% in some cases. That means the 12th session we had, maybe for different reasons, maybe for valid reasons. But what I am suggesting is the parliament working has been drastically gone down, and even if the parliament met in the last session of the 12th session of the 15th Lok Sabha, for 62 hours, 59 hours were wasted and went to the adjournments. However, the government gets survey. Even if members of parliament do not attend or the attendance has gone, somehow government gets the bills passed even without discussion. And there have been cases where bills have been passed in flat 3 minutes. Minister read it or even did not fully read it. He said, assumed to be read, and everybody, those present say yes, and the bill is passed. That means the kind of seriousness which we expect from our parliament, the discussions, that has really suffered over a period of time, and the number of bills also, each indicator I have said, except the number of questions, each indicator shows a decline. The first Lok Sabha passed on an average 72 bills every year, and the current Lok Sabha has passed only 40 bills a year for the 4 years that has gone by. That means the number of bills passed in the Lok Sabha is also going down. The worst was 2004 when only 18 bills were passed. This is the graph which again shows a very clear downward trend for the number of bills which have been passed. Very important thing, a member of parliament, irrespective of which party he or she belongs to, they have a right to introduce a private member's bill. And if you look at this heading which I have given to this, no private member's bill has been passed in parliament since 1970. That means in the last 43 years, no private member's bill has ever been passed. Of course, they have about 258 bills which are pending, and God knows whether in the current Lok Sabha they will ever come to be for a discussion. But the 244 actually number of matters raised. Now, members also raise the issues related to the constituency or their state or their districts or whatever, which is under different rules. So 377. I was reading a report which said if you correlate between the time when the television is on in the house and the member shouting, there is a very high correlation. What does that mean? That means whether you have a Rajya Sabha channel and you have a Lok Sabha channel, and there are private channels also which telecast from these two channels. The members of parliament shout, disrupt, raise the issues only when they are sure that their face will come on the camera and they'll be noticed. And barring which the cameras are out after 0 hours, the attendance goes down. I have several graphs for attendance. They have a freedom to raise issue under different rules. There is a rule called 377 in Lok Sabha. Several questions have been raised, but this only shows that the performance, again, this is number of questions they are raising also going down. 135 questions, which is number of matters which we have raised in 0 hours. As I said, 0 hour is most attractive as far as the media is concerned, and 0 hour media takes immediate attention. The moment the question hour is over, the moment the speaker says question hour is over, the members start shouting. Naturally they know that at this point in time, the maximum attention of the media will be there, and this is what this figure shows, that this shouting in 0 hour has gone up, and this is the only bright spot. This is 15th Lok Sabha, so therefore the curve may be up and down. These were different sessions of the 15th Lok Sabha, but number of questions which people are asking on an average is going up. When you look at the attendance record, very interesting thing. The average attendance in both houses fell between 70% and 75%, average. Irrespective of whether they are educated people, less educated people, women members, men members, belonging to a particular political party or different political parties. Among the 6 largest parties, Rashtriya Janata Dal and CPIM had the best attendance record in the current. And the worst was BJP and BSP. Lowest average attendance of the houses in the parliament. And if this is the graph, the first one is according to the session, budget session and others, and second one is according to the political parties. Then whether age group has any relationship with the attendance. As you can say, older members attend parliament more often than the younger members. Maybe older members, once they sit, they cannot get up and go, and therefore they are seated till the house is adjourned. So the 61 to 70 age group, that both in Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, that has the highest attendance. Surprisingly, I am sure it has nothing to do with the issues they are raising, but yes, the lowest performance is from the 25 to 40 in Rajya Sabha and 25 to 40 in Lok Sabha also. That means youngest people who actually represent the mass of the country, the bulk of the voters, they are not the ones who are actually attending it higher. If you look at the women and men MPs, women MPs in Rajya Sabha attend Rajya Sabha more often, but in the Lok Sabha there is not much difference between the two. By education, very interestingly, PhDs attend the house 80% of the time. Postgraduates attend the house 76% of the time. And those who are educated only up to secondary class, they attend the house only up to 68% of the time in Lok Sabha and roughly around 70% in the Rajya Sabha. And in Rajya Sabha, of course, the PhD is going down, maybe for whatever reason, but as you can see, there is very clear, straightforward trend between the education and the attendance of the house. Income of the political parties is another issue which I am talking about, that people, the political parties earn money from wherever, they don't declare the sources. 81% income which these political parties have filed, 81% of the BJP actually, and the Congress has roughly around slightly less, the contribution from the donations. Now, when the annual return is to file before the income tax, and where the money the source has to be declared for anybody who has given more than 20,000 rupees, these political parties don't give the source. ADR, the Association for Democratic Reforms, they have filed several PILs and asked the income tax authorities also why they are not forcing these political parties to declare the source of money, except the corporate donations, the money which has been received from the companies through check, but that is a very small, meager percentage. That has been declared, but the bulk of the money which they say has come from the small donations, that has, the source has of course not been revealed. And when this RTI was filed with the speakers and the income tax authorities, nothing has come out in the last 6 years. They have not been able to compel the members. Yes, ADR had also approached individual members, and out of which 66 members honestly gave this return, and they gave all the details that how much money they have collected and how much money they have not collected. Well, there is a lot of this thing, but I can say only the top three sources of money for national parties. The sale of coupons. Congress says that our 57% money, not 57,000, sorry, this is in lakhs. 57,000 lakhs, this comes from sale of coupons. What coupons? Congress party says we give coupons to our different state units and local units to give the money or get the donations, and these coupons are in the denominations of 500, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, and they are not declared because it's all below 20,000 rupees, so they are not obliged to give the source. So they say bulk of this money is actually coming from the donations. Same with BJP, same with BSP. BSP of course has a record of saying that in Supreme Court also by Mayawati said that all the money which she has, that about 420 crores, maybe this is our apt figure, comes from the donations from the public, and this money was given on her birthday by the people. So just to put everything in summarized form, the increased income profile, we have more crorepati candidates in both the houses of parliament. Women members are more, which is a good sign actually. Participation of women should be there in our democracy, larger and larger, and this is what is happening. In general, work is less now as compared to previous houses, both whether you talk about Rajya Sabha or Lok Sabha. Disruptions are more, attendance has gone down, business transaction has reduced, and criminalization has also increased. I was told when I started with Professor Vaidyanathan's remark, the change is about to come. Change is in the air. परिवर्तन आने वाला है. मैं परिवर्तन को देख रहा हूं, लेकिन परिवर्तन को लाने वाले तो आप हैं. जब तक आप ये दृढ़ निश्चय नहीं कर लेंगे कि परिवर्तन हमें लाना है और देश की जो राजनीतिक हालात है, सिर्फ हालात ही नहीं, देश के जो आपके राजनीतिक प्रतिनिधि हैं, इनको बदलना है, ये संकल्प आपको लेना है और आपको ये संकल्प उन लोगों तक पहुंचाना है जिनके हाथ में वोट की ताकत है. आप बदलेंगे तो दुनिया बदलेगी, आप बदलेंगे तो संसद बदलेगी, आप बदलेंगे तो राजनीति बदलेगी. धन्यवाद.